welcome to Gender Agenda, your primetime policy literacy program that bridges the gap through real-time deliberate conversations with policymakers and shapers, women across all sectors and spheres. Well, this will also seek to not to only maximize the voices of women across all forces, but also enhance participation at all levels in Nigeria and Africa. My name is Adora Sydney Jack, and you're welcome to the show. Now, from this month of March, Gender Agenda will be bringing you the Side-by-Side Niger campaign supported by the UN Women, an advocacy series focused on the special seat bill and its importance towards advancing women's representation in elective and appointive positions. Nigeria is currently, as we all know, engaged in discussions regarding constitutional and electoral reform. This process is fueled by several concerns, including a lengthy period of underrepresentation of women, particularly young women and women with disabilities. Women's representation in Nigeria has continued to decline, especially in elective and appointive positions. This lack of women's representation further erodes the voices of women in policy making and implementation of policies that will affect the lives of women and girls. The importance of agency in women's political leadership and representation in Nigeria is a frontline issue, as it is not only one of the things that limits the ability to create the enabling environment, equal access, or opportunities such as healthcare, education, financial inclusion, and rural development, amongst others. This conversation explores the importance, the need, and also the curiosity around the special seat bill and the consideration of the bill as a historic opportunity to bridge the gap in women's political leadership in Nigeria. Today, we first unpack the conversation by asking the question, what is the special seat bill and for what purpose? And joining us to discuss this is Dr. Otivo Musa, the founding executive director, Center LSD, and Bukola Idowu, Executive Director, Kimpact Development. We also have Austin Aibo, who is also, as we always know, has been a he for she, a frontline election analyst. Our phone lines are also open, so please call us in or send your messages. You'll see the numbers on the screen shortly during the program as we welcome your views on the matter during our feedback and question segment. The telephone number will be right there on your screen shortly as we start. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, we'll start our conversation in earnest. Stay with us. Nigeria is currently engaged in discussions regarding constitutional and electoral reform. This process is fueled by several concerns, including a lengthy period of underrepresentation of women, particularly young women and women with disabilities. Gender Agenda presents the Side-by-Side Niger campaign, an advocacy series focused on the special seat bill and its importance towards advancing women's representation in elective and appointive positions. Join us as we delve deep into the discuss on women's representation, the importance of the special seat bill, and the need for an emergent solution towards women's participation in politics. Side-by-Side Niger. Together we can.
So much discussion is going on about elective and appointive positions in the ongoing constitutional reforms. Are you wondering what this is about?
It is very simple. Gender quota is a policy that ensures a fair representation of both men and women in leadership and governance spaces.
It is designed to create a more balanced and inclusive environment by setting a minimum threshold for either gender, recognizing that both men and women bring valuable perspectives to decision making.
For example, this is in place in Rwanda, where women make up 61% of the parliament, and in Namibia, where women make up 46.2%.
In Nigeria, without a gender quota, women in parliament are 4.7%.
With a gender quota,
we can change this narrative.
Join the movement.
Thank you for that, and then we'll get straight into the conversation. Welcome, Dr. Tive. Welcome, Austin. And I'm sure that the conversation on the special seat bill has dominated, the political discourse and even on social issues. I'll start with you, Dr. Tive, because you were somebody who has been passionate about democracy. You had a conversation to look at our democracy, and one would say there cannot be democracy without inclusion. What do you think about the special seat bill? What is it? What does it mean to you?
Well, I think the special seats bill is a law whose time has come for Nigeria. It proposes to reserve seats for women. And the reason is simple. Globally, all over the world, women have been discriminated against and marginalized in terms of elections and political office. As a matter of fact, all over the world, the time that women started voting is different from the time that men started voting. In the UK, it was a period of 51 years. In Sweden, it was a period of 498 years. In Nigeria, men started voting in the first election, which was given by the Clifford Constitution of 1922 in 1923. And where the Constitution stated clearly that for you to vote in an election, you must be a man with an income of nothing less than £100. So women were excluded. The 1946 Richards Constitution reduced the property qualification to £50. Women were excluded. The 1951 Macpherson Constitution removed property qualification from all men, but women were excluded. It was not until 1979 here that all women in Nigeria voted in elections. So, but we know that if you want democracy, women who constitute 50% must participate. We also know that when women are in parliament, they provide more gender-sensitive policies and programs, allocation to water and sanitation, education and health and infrastructure increases, the possibility of peace increases. We know that countries that have gender-sensitive policies, like the Scandinavian countries of Norway, Denmark, Finland, they all are on top of the Human Development Index. Now, countries across the world have realized this. And what they are doing is to reserve seats for women.
All right.
That's what happened in Rwanda. It happened in Sierra Leone. It happened in Benin Republic. A study was carried out recently, and it indicated African countries were ranked, and Nigeria took 54th position out of 54. In Urhobo language, we call it Agbekpo. So
right.
Nigeria is last
100.
in terms of women in parliament.
In fact, I heard there's also a new statistic that Nigeria is ranking 180 out of 193 in countries under the IPU. Austin, this is something that you have continued to speak about. What is the essential purpose of this? He's talked about it and broken it down in terms of, one, political participation and women's involvement in policy decisions.
Okay, so thank you. Let me begin by saying that special seat is a strategy to ensure that we are all on the table. There is nothing for us without us. It's a policy direction that helps to bring those who are not included to be part of the policy process. And arguably, in fact, I'm trying not to repeat Dr. TV, in fact is that there are certain things that impact on men that we can speak about. I can't represent a woman in the matter that impact, particularly we talk about healthcare issues and all of that. Most of the time, we can always say, no, provide sanitary pad. I don't know the impact or when sanitary pad is available or not available. I can only theorize. I can look at report and talk about it. But one who suffer for the lack of sanitary pad, we understand what it means not to have sanitary pad available. Or we talk about maternal health. The way in which healthcare facilities are not friendly, that people in today's time and age, a pregnant woman is taken to the hospital and there is no facility to attend to that pregnant woman safely is a challenge. As a man, I can already quarrel about it. I may not understand the enormity of that deprivation. So what are we talking about? The inclusion is a measure. It's a measure to, we call it quota system. A quota system is to deliberate. It's a deliberate action that because there are historical imbalance, cultural imbalance. I mean, Dr. TV talked about the statistics already. Culturally, there'd be deprivation. And the men, I mean, I'm happy that we are men. The men has continually been seen as the owners of the land, everything. So it took a long time for the system to even consider a woman to have a voice. And we have seen the repercussion. We have seen the backwardness. I was almost going to laugh when Dr. David said Agbepo. Agbepo, I thought it was a Benin word. Because,
No, it's an honorable word.
it's a Benin word because Agbepo is the man that took the last. I mean, it's actually a shame that where you have brilliant Nigerian women who are making impact on a global stage, who provide idea for the global community to solve most of the biggest development problem in our own shore. They are not part of those who make policies and programs to enhance our livelihood. It's an aberration. It's an aberration. And I think, very importantly, even look at homes where you have two people agreeing on an issue. Go and check statistics that when husband and wife agree on issue and to pursue that plan, those plans are achieved more better off when it is taken by one of the if it's a woman that takes the decision alone, the man usually will say no. But they take it together, it approves more results. What are we talking about? In all honesty, I think that just aligning with the Senate president who said in a recent meeting that it is time to do it. And imagine how he talked about his mother, which is very, and I'd like to...
The same Senate president that we have been talking about, or another one?
Well, I mean, for the now, he's 16th president. And he said, and let me quickly end by what he said, just to re-echo that. He said when his mother died, his mother was 22 years old, that if it was his father that died, he would never have become Senate president. It means the role of the woman is sequential to the point of development, and we cannot afford it at this time.
All right. Just before we go on a quick break, Dr. Tive, one of the things that the special seat bill hopes to do is that those seats will be competed for by women, for women. Does it stop them from competing for other seats?
No, it doesn't. You know, the way the bill is structured is that for each state, there will be one additional seat for women. And for each state, there will be 2 additional seats for for women, senatorial seats. 1 additional senatorial seat, 2 additional House of Reps seats, and then 3 additional seats in the House of Assembly. And the way it's distributed is this. For the woman contesting for the Senate, her constituency will be the entire state will vote for the women's seat. But women are also allowed to compete for the 3 other senatorial districts. The same thing, the federal constituency will be divided into 2, you know, for the purposes of the special seats be. The same way, the state is already divided into 3 senatorial districts. So each senatorial district will produce an additional member for the House of Assembly. But it doesn't stop them from contesting for the other normal seats.
Okay, so we are supposed to have a break and get some callings, but we already have people calling us in, and we wanted to get feedback. So if you're just joining us, the number is right there on your screen. Let's quickly take a call. Hello, good evening.
How are you?
I'm fine, please. Can we have your name, where you're calling from, and your question or your comment?
I'm coming from Lagos, Kaduna, and my name is Dabangibwe.
All right, please, can we have your question?
I'm very much interested in this agenda program.
Okay, so we are talking about special seats.
I feel Nigeria is not interested on that agenda. Nigeria as a whole, our government as a whole, is not interested because at least 70% are for gender in Nigeria. And before they can be interested, they want to come to the constitution. They have to enshrine it into constitution. Are you hearing me?
Hi everyone, my name is Mariam Ray, lawyer, activist, and gender advocate. I'm committed to creating a more inclusive world. Over the years, I have worked tirelessly to share the feeling of children about social justice, opportunities, and equality in government. But there's still so much work to be done in our country. Women continue to be represented in leadership and decision-making roles, despite their immense contribution to society. The side-by-side campaign is about changing this reality. By supporting the side-by-side movement, we are taking a stand for Nigeria where every woman has the chance to lead, influence policies, and contribute meaningfully to national development. So I ask that you join me. We must advocate for the future of the country.
All right, thank you for joining us, Joe Johnson. This is Gender Agenda, and we're having the side-by-side conversation on the special seats, and that's what we are looking at. We've been having feedbacks and phone-ins coming out. We still have the calls coming. Let's just take one more call. Hello, good evening. Yes, good evening. Your name and where you're calling from.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, where are you calling from and your question, please?
Hello,
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Good evening.
Good evening. Please, what is your name?
Yeah, Mr. Samuel. I'm calling from Kaduna.
Okay, Mr. Samuel, what is your question or your comment?
Well, my comment, I want to say one or two things in respect to gender agenda.
Okay, are you talking about the special seat bill? Because that's the conversation we are having.
Yes, I can hear you, ma.
We are having the conversation on special seats for women, to have more seats for women at the National Assembly. Is that your question? Do you have a question around that?
Yeah, I think I would like to support the cause for the women because our men have been left behind.
All right, thank you very much for your comment.
I think, we need to support the women so that they will have a good sense of belonging because they are contributing a lot to the economy.
All right, thank you so much for that contribution.
And I would like to advise again that some women that we think they've done well, and if the women should go there, they will do very, very different from some of the men.
Okay.
The men will support them.
Okay. So you're saying you're advocating for more women?
Yes, definitely.
All right, thank you so much for that call. All right, so Dr. TV, I'll come back to you because, the first caller talked about the contribution. I think we were off a bit when he called. He was talking about the special seat bill and why it's important, but for him, he also understands that it should be an open race. The second person perhaps did not get the perspective right. So I just wanted you to clarify.
Yes, the special seat bill is a bill for an act to make law so that there will be some seats reserved for women. And these seats will be reserved for women in the parliament. So in the Senate, every state will have one additional seat for women. Normally in a state, there are 3 senatorial districts, 3 seats, but you create one more seat, and it will be competed for. So the person who will be having that women reserve seat as a senator will be voted for by the entire state.
Okay.
Then plus the 3 senators that will normally come. And the women are also allowed to compete in all those 3 seats. For each state, each state will have 2 at the House of Reps. Mm-hmm. So that state will also be divided into 2. One half will vote for one, the other half will vote for the other. Then for the state houses of assembly, it will be each senatorial district will produce 1 additional member for the House. And then the relevant sections of the Constitution will be amended to give room for this. But I think IBE raised an important issue, which I think we need to consider for the purposes of advocacy. Because some people think that if you have one special seat, for instance, for a senator, and the entire state will be the constituency of that woman senator for the reserved seat, she will be like a super senator. Because in politics, what determines your importance is your constituency. So that senator will have the same constituency like the governor. politicians are very worried about such things. In fact, the woman senator from that reserve seat can stand in the red chambers and say, look, I'm talking, you are talking. You know, I'm not a senator like you. I represent the entire people of Delta State.
Is there a danger in that?
There is. In terms of ego of politicians. And they are the ones who are going to approve this law. So if they don't agree, because of that, they can leave the law. So what they do in some other countries, although it has its own disadvantages, is that for each voting section, you will choose the senatorial district that will produce the special seat. So all of them will now have the same number of constituencies. So there will be no super senator. And but what I am saying is that we must take all this into consideration and choose one that people are comfortable with, but we should not, because of that, fail to pass the bill.
So, Austin, while I just take this call, please permit me, because we're about to just round up. Hello, good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Ngozi from Lagos.
Ngozi, what's your contribution on this special seat discussion?
But I'm hearing you small, but your TV is not talking loud, so I don't know what really happened. So
okay, so we should work on the sound for you. Okay, all right, thank you very much. So, Dr. Austin, coming back to the conversation, he has raised a very valid point, taking it from what you said. Again, what will be the way forward? Because the conversation is that this bill is a necessity. It will also bridge the gap.
No, that's what I'm saying. You see, that's the position most people are peddling. The truth of the matter is that it's a special seat, and it's for women. It doesn't make it super. It's that I represent women. I am here because of women. I am not here on behalf of the state, because the men didn't vote for her. The men didn't compete with her.
Yes.
So that makes her to be a unique seat, but it is not super. The privileges of the senator represent, in fact, maybe just to, doctor, I also think that she doesn't have a constituency. Our constituency is the women. That's a major, because it's the representation of inclusion.
No, constituency in terms of the people
that voted. That's a constituency for voting. But it was not competed for by both gender. So that also weakens that position to say it is only for women. And it's because we wanted an inclusive house that this person you are talking about now, in fact, I agree with Doc, because it may get to some individuals who will eventually win the seat and then begin to flex muscle.
But the agenda first, just like other countries he mentioned, Seychelles, you're talking about countries like South Africa, Rwanda. The quota was an inroad. It was like, let's open the door, get the women in, and then start talking. Is that not the first point?
So there are many measures. There are different ones. For instance, if you go to Kenya, the special seat is going to identify a women group, and then they send representatives. So that is clear. But in Sierra Leone, it was a law, GWI Act, and they came up with a block voting system. It was the parties that included the women in. Maybe that will work better. But right now, it may be a challenge. That's why the special seat B is the most. I have studied using up to 100 countries to check how you have done inclusion. That particularly in Africa, others will just use appointees. Even South Africa people mention it's more 50% in the executive committee. So it's not really entirety, but it's important that we follow through the special seat B and for people to ask questions and find out the meaning. Read the bill. The bill did not make the woman a special senator.
All right, thank you so much. I think this conversation just got heated up. And if you want to follow us, you can follow us online on Side by Side on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, and look at what the conversation is saying. And please do join us in next time to be able to continue this conversation. I want to say thank you to my guest, Dr. Oteef Obuze, Founding Executive Director, Center LSD, and of course, Austin Naibe, who is also a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining. Yes.
Wow.